In this presentation, I'll be displaying our findings on how month of the year affects the percent of behaviors that are foraging in the Sierras carolinensis, also known as the eastern gray squirrel. The winter season brings with it a scarcity of resources like food. The eastern gray squirrel evolved food caching behaviors where they forage for nuts that they then store in trees and buried sites to eat later. One previous study found that in the summertime, squirrels spent more of their daily activity resting, while in the fall, a higher proportion of their daily activity was spent foraging and storing food. Observing the seasonal behavior of food cachers and hoarders is important, as researchers can use the timing of observed behaviors to understand the effects of climate change and how it's impacting ecosystems. We hypothesize that in the period from August to November, the average percent of observed behaviors that are foraging will increase with time. On the image on the left, we can see a squirrel in the process of burying its food in a cache site. On the right, we can see an abandoned cache site. Individuals observed a squirrel, if visible and present, at the same time and location every week for 5 minutes. The behavior of the squirrel was recorded every 20 seconds. These behaviors, including social, alert feeding, vigilance, and foraging, if in a valid format, were then compiled. We filtered out any observations that did not have a squirrel present. We then calculated the percent of observed behaviors that were foraging in each observation and averaged a percent for each month. We performed a linear regression test to see if there is a relationship between month and the average percent foraging behavior, or APFB. The performed linear regression test indicates that there is no relationship between month and APFG. The test statistical values can be seen here. Additionally, the slope of the line of best fit is negative 0.1138. Looking at figure 1, it can be noted that the slope of the line of best fit is horizontal and flat. The p-value of 0.4926 is much greater than 0.05, indicating that there's no statistically significant relationship between the month and APFB. Furthermore, the slope of the line being extremely close to zero and flat indicates that there's no correlation between the two variables. Possible errors in the experiment may arise from the fact that the observations in an invalid format were not incorporated into the dataset, so the used data may not be a truly representative sample of what was actually observed, ultimately making the relationship seem weaker than it potentially was. From the linear regression test, we can conclude that there's no evidence to support the initial hypothesis that month of the year affects APFB. Further studies can be performed to examine how the timing of seasonal behaviors in the eastern gray squirrel and other food catchers compares from year to year. For example, if squirrels are observed to engage in high percentages of foraging behavior later in the year in comparison to previous years, it may be inferred that temperatures are on the rise, delaying winter and the squirrel's response. A previous study on pygmy owls found that they tended to delay their food hoarding behaviors if the temperature did not drop below the freezing point of meat, showing how animals can be great indicators for changing climates. Thank you.